This free webinar was recorded on Tuesday the 7th of July. I'm making it available to everybody that registered, whether they attended or not. For some reason, I didn't get my video cam into the video. Zoom's a bit of an unknown quantity for me. I'm very grateful for it and it's a fantastic tool, but I am not an expert, so I apologise for that. I've left the questions on at the end because there were no names and no webcams shown on the video. So I hope you find this helpful.
So hopefully this is what you all think you signed up for. Introducing technology to transform learning for dyslexics. It says dyslexics because that's where my background is, and dyslexia is what I understand because I'm dyslexic and my husband's dyslexic and my kids are dyslexic. But from working with students in schools for the last 5 years, I realized that an awful lot of the technology that I introduce to people helps a lot of different learners. In fact, any learner, they don't have to have a learning difficulty, would benefit from this technology. So I'm starting off slowly to give people a chance to get in, but I have got an awful lot I want to get through. So I am going to race through a little bit and just hope people can catch up. This is being recorded, so if everything goes to plan, I will send out a link to this recording tomorrow or the day after. Okay, so these are my objectives for this evening. My objective always is to empower dyslexics or all learners to achieve their potential. And the whole point of tonight is to enable parents to support dyslexic learning. And my goal for this webinar is that it will save you time. Now, you're not going to be an expert at anything by the end of this, but I'm going to raise your awareness so you know that different solutions exist. And I'm going to show you a few key solutions in more detail, but not many. But I'm going to provide you with a lot of information to find out more if that's something that interests you. And what I'm really hoping to do is to whet your appetite so you want to find out more, because there is so much fabulous functionality that can really, really aid learning that I want this to start a journey of discovery for you. And if I take the analogy of whetting your appetite, just one thing to be aware of is there is a absolutely humongous amount of technology available to make learning easier. And tonight I am just going to give you a tiny, tiny snippet of what's available. So really tonight's just a little taster menu to whet your appetite. So in this 1.5 hour session, I'm going to start off with trying to get to know one another. I'm going to introduce myself because I don't want to misrepresent myself in any way. And I'm going to tell you about the people that are here. So I found out some information about you, and I'm going to poll and get some more information about you. So that's what I'm hoping to do. And then I'm going to have a really generic session about why use technology for learning. And then I'm going to be more specific. And I've thought of 5 specific areas that I can look at in more detail. And sadly, most of it is going to be me telling you, because in a short amount of time, I'm not able to demo and show videos as much as I'd like, but I want to make you aware of a lot. So unfortunately, there's going to be quite a bit of me talking, but I have got a few videos, but I've got an awful lot of videos in the slides that you can watch in your own time. And I'm going to signpost you to lots of information, but I would ask you, please be patient with me. I have never done anything like this before. I use Zoom for remote consultancy sessions and for webinars, but it's always with the mic switched on and we're all talking to one another. And I'm definitely a people person, and I'm energized by talking to people. So talking to a screen with no interaction is really, really weird for me. And so I will do my best. Plus, I find Zoom really clunky and slow. So please be patient with me. I'm sure you will. And I just want to reiterate that all the slides, everything that we're going to see is going to be recorded and the slides will be made available. So I really hope you've finished all your jobs for this evening and that you can sit back with a drink. I've got a drink. It's only water. It's not gin and tonic, although I have got a glass of wine over there if I need it. But yeah, this isn't going to be relaxing because I'm going to go through an awful lot of information very quickly. But you don't have to get it now. You can read the slides afterward. You can watch the video. You can stop, rewind. So you don't have to really pay attention now. You can relax and just be aware of these different solutions. How will I handle questions? If I'm honest, I probably won't answer any questions. We'll see. I'm here on my own. I don't have an administrator or anyone helping me reading the questions as you pose them. And I'm very dyslexic, so talking to you while I read the comments is actually quite hard for me. Plus, there's an awful lot to get through in an hour and a half. So chances are we won't have time for questions, but do ask them because I've got another webinar in 2 weeks' time on the 21st of July. And I'd happily try to answer any questions from tonight on the 21st of July. And if it doesn't fit into what I've got planned for the 21st of July, then maybe I'll do another one because it's actually quite easy for me, you know, famous last words, fingers crossed, but it's actually quite easy for me to host a webinar from my spare room. So yeah, ask away, but chances are they won't be answered tonight. So let's have a look. Oh, thank you, Carla. All good so far. Thank you. That's great. So that's how I'm going to handle questions. Let's get to know each other. And first of all, who is Caroline Bateman? Like, I know from reading your registration forms that most of you have not been to one of my workshops before, which is really interesting because I've done an awful lot of workshops in the last 5 years, and I thought there'd be quite a few people coming back as a refresher. So it's really encouraging for me to be speaking to new people. But who am I and what qualifies me to speak on this subject? Well, as I say, I don't want to misrepresent myself. Achieve Now can make it look like it's a big professional organization. It's not, it's me. When I started this 5 years ago, I didn't think Caroline Bateman, learning consultant, learning technology and strategies consultant, had a good ring. And what I want to do is I want to empower learners to achieve. And my daughter came up with the idea. She was 15 at the time, she's 20 now, and she came up with Achieve Now, and I thought it was a great idea. So it is just me. So I'm here in my spare bedroom, not because it's locked down and I can't get into the office. This is the Achieve Now office. This is where I make my YouTube videos. This is where it happens. I shut the door and I try to keep the kids out. They often come in, and they probably do that tonight, asking me for something. So I am Achieve Now, but I also have a fantastic assistant who's Emma Govender, and that's her there with her two sons, Jamin and David. And I met Emma because Jamin was one of the first pupils I had on one of my after-school clubs for dyslexics, and Jamin is severely dyslexic, and Emma was, you know, really grateful for the help, and she was really keen to help me. And Emma isn't dyslexic, so she does all my proofreading, and I really need that because I cannot see my own mistakes, and Emma proofreads everything for me. And even so, I still get quite a lot of emails saying, you do realize you spelt this wrong on your website. And I'm really grateful when people let me know. And Emma always feels bad, but she can't catch everything. But, you know, I'm dyslexic, and I could let that hold me back and not do anything. Or I just think, well, you know, so what, I'll make some spelling mistakes. So that's me. And I'm very, very grateful for Emma, who can't be with me this evening. Otherwise, she'd be manning your questions. But off we go. Why did I get involved in this? Well, I've mentioned already that I'm dyslexic, but I had no idea I was dyslexic. My 3 kids were all completely failing at school. And that was a real shock to me, because both my husband and I both did really well at school, and we're both working class kids, done good through education. So, you know, when the first one was doing badly, we thought, well, okay. But the second was really doing badly, and we didn't know what was going on. And somebody suggested we get them tested for dyslexia. And while I was doing the research, everything I read, I thought, well, that's me. That's me. That's you, to my husband. And it just became really clear that we are a family of dyslexics. And my kids were really having a hard time at school. Our home was not a happy place. I was working in the IT industry. I never had a problem at school. I got a 2-1 in a business degree. I had a great career in the IT industry, but I needed to be home to help the kids because they just needed a lot more help. So I gave up work to support them. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but it's something that I did. And because my background is technology, while I was banging my head against the wall thinking, how on earth am I going to teach these kids to read? I thought, well, I'll look into technology because it can't be that hard. And I was delighted with what I found, absolutely delighted. And by this time, I'd taken my kids out of the local state schools and I'd sent them to dyslexia-friendly schools. And I was totally amazed that they were not using this technology because they were dyslexia-friendly schools. So I really want to let everyone know about this technology because so much of it is free. And how I would equate this technology is I am blind as a bat. I mean, I really am. These are my lovely glasses that I just buy off the shelf. These are plus 1.5 because now I'm getting older. My contact lenses that are plus 975 need a little bit of extra help when I read, but I am really, really blind. And had I been born before glasses and contact lenses were commonplace, I'd have never, ever learnt to read because I could not focus on the text. And I felt that for my children, technology is their glasses. You know, my son really, really struggled to read, but I could get technology to read for him. I could get technology to do all the things that he couldn't do. And I'm delighted to say now that all my kids are doing really, really well in education. Now, I don't say this to be, you know, to boast and think, oh, aren't I great? My kids are doing great academically. I say it to give you hope because I was so without hope. I was so fearful that they'd never get a job, that they'd never amount to anything, that they'd be on their family payroll forever. And so to see them all doing so well is so, so encouraging. So I say that to you if you're where I used to be. So that's my story. So I started Achieve now 5 years ago. And it says there in my strapline, it's all about empowering dyslexic. I have another one, which is transforming learning, which is a bit more encompassing. It isn't just dyslexics. And I started off doing workshops in schools and for regional groups like the BDA and PATOS, the Professional Association for Special Needs Teachers. And if I'm honest, I didn't think I'd still be doing it 5 years later. I just thought, like, it's amazing that schools aren't using this tech. And I'll just speak at a few conferences, I'll teach them how to do it, and then I'll go back to the IT industry and earn a salary. But it's been incredibly slow getting the word out. Schools, for whatever reason, don't tend to be interested. So I tend to work with families. And when you work with families, it's very slow because you help one family at a time, rather than when you help a school, you help thousands of families. So I do consultancy for both families and schools, but families tend to use me a lot more than schools. I teach students in schools and remotely, and I've got so into remote learning through the pandemic. And this lockdown has been a real eye-opener for me because I've started just doing an awful lot more remotely, and it's been really successful. Before the lockdown, I started doing free videos. I created a YouTube channel because I personally, being really dyslexic, if I want to learn how to do something, I don't look for a manual. I look on YouTube, or I look for a video. And I figured an awful lot of the people I was trying to help, that is the parents of dyslexics, will be like me. So I created a YouTube channel, and I'm just going to show you where that is now. And this is where it gets fun when you're on Zoom, when you're swapping over things, is my YouTube channel. So this is what it looks like. It's the Achieve Now YouTube channel, and I have absolutely loads of really, really helpful videos on there. And I basically created them because I thought I've got to get the word out to parents quicker than just one family at a time. And the other thing that I do is I create a lot of free resources. So if you come onto my website and you go to resources, you'll see that I have lots of resources here. And if you click on here, you see stuff to help with comprehension. These are all free resources that teach reading, revision tips. There's just an awful lot on there. So I just want to make you aware of those. So I do how-to videos. I've got lots of free eBooks. And over the pandemic, I was doing three free webinars a week. So I've got used to doing webinars, hence I had the confidence to do something like this. And I have to say, I put it out there, and I never expected so many people to sign up. And in all honesty, a lot less people have signed in than signed up. I guess that they're hoping to get the video afterward. One thing I think is really worth saying is I don't sell any solutions. I have no affiliate memberships. I don't get any commission at all. And that's a decision I've made because I want to be able to give impartial advice. And everything I show you, I'm going to show you because I think it's good, but it's not good for all students in all circumstances. And I'm very quick to say, it's not very good at this, but it is good at that. And because I don't sell any solutions, I haven't developed any solutions, I don't get offended if you think, well, that's rubbish and that won't work for me because of this reason. In fact, if we were in one of my regular workshops, not on Zoom with so many of us, I would be actively asking you to tell me if you've used solutions, when they were good, when they weren't good, because I think it's really important to learn from one another and not all be trying to recreate the wheel. You know, let's learn. If something's rubbish in certain circumstances, I'd rather you told me and shared it with everybody else. So feel free to tell me that in the comments, but I think it would get out of control if we all started to have that conversation. So let's have a look. What is next on my slides? Okay, you answered some questions for me, and I just thought I'd share what the answers were. When it comes to ages, the vast majority of you are looking for solutions for children under 10. And then we've got between 11 and 13. Between 13 and 18, and then everybody, or all ages. And I've got solutions that I'm going to show you tonight that fall into all those categories. As I've already said, most of you haven't been to one of my workshops before, and most of you are here as parents rather than educational professionals, but some of you are both, and that is often the case. But this is very, very directed at parents. And although I am a teacher now, I came to this as a parent, and I really have parents of dyslexics on my heart. I really want to help them because I think it's really hard, and nobody teaches us how to be parents, but nobody teaches us how to be parents of dyslexics or parents of children with special needs. And it's hard, but there's lots of really great information out there, but we're all recreating the wheel looking for it. So I'm trying to make that process a little bit more efficient, because the sooner you put strategies in place, the sooner children get helped and the less damage is done to their self-esteem. So why use technology for learning? Well, this is the main reason for me. I think many children with learning difficulties are extremely bright, but they underachieve at school because schools are not set up the way they learn. And as a consequence, these kids think they're stupid. Many of their teachers think they're stupid, and many of us parents think they're stupid. I know for me, when my children really struggled to learn to read, I thought, oh, okay, well, they're not very bright, I still love them, but they're not very bright. And that is not the case. All my kids are very bright. They're just not very literate. And the sad truth is, in our education system, we mistake literacy for intelligence. And that is really, really sad. And as a consequence, lots of people's natural talent just goes unutilized, and they don't even realize how brilliant they are. But the good news is technology enables students to overcome their difficulties with literacy, and it empowers them to reach their full potential. And I'm going to show you just some very basic technology that will show you how that works tonight. And the amazing thing is, pardon me, this transformational technology is often completely free, and yet so few people know it exists. When I wanted to find technology to help my son, he was in a special needs school. I went to his teacher, she couldn't tell me. I went to his tutor, she couldn't tell me. I went back to the ed psych, they couldn't tell me. And I'm thinking, well, everyone said technology is the way to go, but nobody could say, buy that app, download this solution. And I just needed some practical help. But thankfully, I'd given up work, so I was Googling and researching all day while the kids were at school. Then they came home, and I put it into practice with them when they left. So just one caveat, one word of warning. While technology has huge potential, it does not guarantee success. And I think this is one of the reasons why schools aren't really interested, because I think they've been burnt in the past where they've invested money they could perhaps not afford into technology, and then it didn't do everything that they hoped it would. And it's really about how you use it that will raise attainment level. Buying it is no good. You've got to train people on how to use it and how to make the best of it. I've just seen a question, and I will definitely look at that next time we're together. So these, and I can't look at questions because I get so easily distracted. My ADD, I've not just got dyslexia, I think I've got everything. So these are all the areas where technology can help. It's an absolutely rubbish slide in that it goes into way too much information, but I leave it in there so you can look at it in your own time and think, oh, I didn't realize you could get solutions for that. And then maybe you could send me an email or send a question. But these are all the areas where I found technology that is really helpful. And there are about 200 solutions that I'm familiar with. We've got 1.5 hours, so I can't possibly show you all 200, but I've just cherry picked a few to show you. So you think, why are there so many different solutions? It's because each different device has a different way of working. So dependent whether you have a Microsoft machine or an Apple Mac or a Chromebook or an iPad, you would do things very differently. And some are easier to use than others, and some are more expensive than others. And what I always try to do is I always try to start with free. I believe that special needs can be very expensive. Everything might only be £10 here, £50 there, £100 there. Nothing is huge, but you add them all up and it's really, really expensive. So I'm really into starting with everything free. And then if you see that there's benefit and you think, well, actually, it might be worth investing some more in this kind of solution because it helps my child. So that's why there are so many solutions. And I've never done this before, but I've got a quick poll, and I want to ask you what kind of devices you guys have. So if you could tell me, that would help me to gear the rest of the session. And you can tick more than one, at least I hope you can. If I've set it up right, you can tick more than one. So Microsoft, that's what I've got. Apple Mac. I think you can only see it all when I end polling, so I might just have to tell you what's going on. So lots of people have got iPads. More people have got Microsoft than Apple Macs. I find Apple Macs far more difficult to use. I think it's what you start off with, but they are fantastic for accessibility. So I think I'm going to end the polling there, but thank you so much for that. So I'm going to share those results with you so you can see them. Fab, thank you for filling those in for me. And these are the categories that I've found solutions for. And they're all important. They tend to work out such that you start off on one and then you work your way up the arrow, but that's not necessarily the case, because obviously you need to encourage and learn to read when you're in adults at times, but they tend to go in this direction. And I have just picked some of them to talk about tonight. I'm just seeing if I can get rid of something. Okay, so these are the ones: learn to read, encourage reluctant readers, read to learn, improve understanding, and produce written work. So these are the 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I'm going to talk about this evening. Now, next week, in 2 weeks' time, I've got another workshop, which is how to set how to set dyslexic learners up for academic success. And in those, we'll cover the others that I'm not covering tonight. And in all honesty, I could have done them in either order, because what we're looking at tonight is the technology, what you can use. But when we get on the 21st, I'll be looking at, well, why would you use it and how would you use it and when would you use it? So that's what they do, kind of dovetail really nicely together, the two different webinars. But I love free. And while we're talking about free webinars, recently the BDA, in fact, it was this time, Thursday night, Miles Pilling, who is just a brilliant assistant technology guy, he's been doing it a lot longer than me, a lot more professional than I am. He did a great free webinar there. And so if you want to see that, you just follow the link here. And the week before, or a few weeks before, BDA put something on. This is more for older, 11 over, it's more study skills. So I found both of those really good. And when I was trying to decide which technology to include in this, I've purposely not shown anything that these guys covered, because that way you get more value for money from a free webinar. Because if I just repeated something they'd already said, then, you know, I might as well use the time to show you something else. So that was my cunning plan. And here is the taster menu of what I'm going to show you tonight. So I'm just going to explain this slide to you. You're going to get this sent to you as a PDF, and anything that has a line behind or a line underneath is underlined. If you click on it, it will take you through to a video or something else that will give you more information. So I can't possibly show you all of this evening, but why I asked you to do the poll was to help me decide which to show you this evening, because I can't show you them all, but you can go in your own time and click on all the links behind here. So that is my plan with this taster menu. And first of all, let's start off with learn to read. And I'm going to answer the question, why is reading so important? Now, our children are in school for 14 years. And to begin with, those, I think it might be longer since I created this slide actually, but the first 4 years, or the first few years, it's all about learning to read. That is the focus of school. It's teaching children to read. So if you're at school and you're finding it hard to learn to read, you're starting to think, well, how can they do it and I can't? And then once you can read, our educational system, in order to be efficient, expects you to read in order to learn. So if you struggle with reading, you really find school quite a difficult place, because you're either learning to read or you're reading to learn. And that has an effect on self-esteem. And this is what I call the performance gap spiral. You know, if a child finds it hard to read, they automatically compare themselves to their peers. This results in low self-esteem, which results in anxiety. So every time they have the opportunity to read or write, they get anxious. And if we're anxious, none of us perform our best. So that further impacts their poor literacy. And so I'm really into trying to nip it in the bud and to get solutions and strategies into place as soon as possible, because this will kill a child's self-esteem. And without confidence, it's really, really hard for anybody to do well. And so an awful lot of my next webinar is going to be talking about self-esteem. So in an hour and a half, I could just talk to you about technology that you can use to learn to read. But obviously, I want to help people whose children can already read, but they need to prepare for exams or do homework. So I'm not going to just concentrate on learn to read, but I have created an ebook, and you'll get this ebook by clicking on that link. And this is one of the pages from this ebook. And it's not, I think for me, it's very clear, but I don't think Zoom gives you the quality. So just download the ebook, it's free. But this one is online resources to train parents on how to teach reading. Because just because you can read no problem doesn't mean you're the best person to teach your child to read, or you'll even know how. So these are great free training for parents that you can do anytime. And I would really recommend them. I personally was more than capable of teaching my children to read. My mother is a primary school teacher. She gave me all the stuff. I kind of saw her teaching people to read all my life. So I was more than capable, but my children didn't want to learn from me. But that's another story. These are two other pages from my book, my ebook. And they talk about two paper-based solutions. Now, I didn't try WordWasp. I tried toe by toe with my children. And I think it couldn't have gone worse. They absolutely hated me. I hated it. We did not have family harmony. It was dreadful. But other children are a lot more cooperative than mine. And if you've only got one, perhaps, rather than trying to juggle three, these are a very effective, cheap way of teaching your children to read. They are very, very good. And what's more, there's this fabulous Facebook group that supports you. So you're not on your own. You can join this group. So if you click here, it will take you to the group. That's what it looks like. And you don't see it, but that girl is actually holding up one of the books. I think it's Toe by Toe that she's finished. But I think as children finish, they post their pictures on the banner. And it's just a very, very supportive group. And they align very much with my philosophy of teaching parents to support dyslexic learners rather than having to spend a lot of money and outsourcing it. There's so much that we can do ourselves. And this is just another really lovely, it's a Canadian lady, and she posts little videos of ideas to help. So, the BD, what to do, and she's come up with ideas that I haven't seen before, and I would really recommend them. Now, if you're not a member of Facebook, and I know a lot of people don't want to go on social media, they don't want to waste time on Facebook, but I would really recommend Facebook. It is a fantastic place to get free resources to support parents. It's incredibly supportive, and you see parents just sounding off and everybody giving them input, and I think it's really, really helpful. So even if I know people that have joined Facebook with a fake name, so no one can connect with them, just to get free resources. And I actually have a video on my YouTube channel to teach you how to do that. So you cannot waste lots of time just seeing what your friends have eaten, all the photographs that they post when they go to restaurants, but you can find out great free resources, particularly in the pandemic when everybody was giving stuff away free. Facebook was just a great way of me sharing everything that I found. So that's learning to read. So I told you that my children weren't very cooperative. So I didn't find paper-based solutions very useful. I found electronic solutions were brilliant. And in this video, I explain all the reasons why I adore technology for teaching children to read. And if I was to sum it up really briefly, I think, one, in my house, books were bad, but screens were good. So my children were really happy to work on a screen, but they didn't want to work in a book. I was no longer the tutor, the computer was the tutor, and then I would help them if they didn't know how to do it. Plus, most of the technology to teach reading is fun. They've really gamified it. It's got fun graphics. And the children, they might moan about, oh, I don't want to do it. But once they started doing it, I'd say just 10 minutes, just do 10 minutes. And they'd be there half an hour later still doing it. So I found technology for my family was far better than paper-based solutions. But everybody's different. So I want to let you know about both. And then on this video, I compare 7 different IT solutions, and none of them are very expensive, but they go from really cheap to, you know, more expensive, and you'll see what they look like, what they help kids with. So that video can save you an awful lot of time, and it saves us time tonight because I don't have to do it all this evening, and I can teach you about other stuff rather than solutions just to learn to read. So let me get on to the next slide. So we've finished the first area, which was learning to read, and we are now on encouraging reluctant readers. And this is an area where I failed miserably. And truthfully, I think an awful lot of parents whose kids struggle with reading fail in this area. And because of that, I created a video which is all about how to develop a love of reading, even in dyslexic children. And what I'm basically doing is I'm confessing all the stupid mistakes I made and what I wish I'd done differently. And again, if I was to sum that up briefly, I think if your child struggles to read, you try to use every opportunity to help them sound it out and what does it say, instead of thinking we will have times when we learn to read and I will teach you to read, and we will have times when we enjoy reading, and they are two totally separate things. Because if you try to merge the two, your kids will hate it. So I would say, well, I'll read a page and then you read a page. So it would flow for a little bit while I read it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a great reader. So I'd read, and then my kids would start reading and they'd start stumbling over words, and I'd be saying, sound it out. You know, and they'd say bike, and then I get cross, and it just wasn't a happy experience. And so I had 3 kids all hated reading. And sadly, research shows that enjoying reading is a really big indicator for academic success, more so than reading early in life. So our kids could start reading later because they're dyslexic, but if they enjoy reading, they will still do well in education because the technology will help them with what they struggle to read. But instilling a love of reading doesn't just help children academically, it helps with their emotional intelligence. It just helps in so many different areas. It helps with mental health. So I then created an ebook which you can download, which is all about how to help your kids develop a love of reading. And to call that an ebook is a bit of an exaggeration. It's more of an e-pamphlet. It's just some little ideas of what you can do to develop a love of reading in children. So back to our taster menu, and I'm hoping that some of my links now will work. So one of the things is I really want to recommend audiobooks. I said that all 3 of my children hated reading, and they really did. My eldest did not read a chapter book until the summer in between year 7 and 8. So she was 12 and a half before she read her first chapter book. But she developed a love of books through audiobooks. And after that, she went on and then became a good reader. And she went on, and normally when I teach children, or if we had more time, I normally show my kids reports from before they started getting help. And then I show their GCSE results. And my daughter, who did not read a chapter book till she was 8 and hated reading, got 100% in 2 English literature papers and dropped 1 mark in the 3rd. So she got an A star, which if you'd have told me that when she was in year 10, I wouldn't have believed you. And that started from audiobooks. I personally have Audible on my phone. I have a free library app. And I listen to books all the time. And that's what she did. And that helped develop in her a love of reading. And while we listen to books, we might not be learning how to decode, but we're learning sentence structure and comprehension and so many other vital skills. So don't give up on audiobooks. Now, I love library books because I love free. And Overdrive do something called read along library books, and your library has to have them in, and you have to be a member of the library. But if they do, they are amazing. And I wish I'd found these when my son was young, because I think I would have got him to actually enjoy reading if I did. And I'm going to show you an Overdrive book, and I'm going to press play.
Unless you are already programmed to know when the pages end, you will know it is time to turn the page when you hear this sound.
Luke Skywalker had returned home to Tatooine in an attempt to rescue his friend Han Solo from...
So we won't go on and get any more, but well, let's not do any more there.
Hello, I am C-3PO, and you are about to listen to the story of Star Wars.
Right, so that is a read-along library book. You can get the physical hard copy from the library, and you can download the professionally narrated with the soundtrack book, and it plays a little tune and tells you when to turn the pages over. Now, obviously, there's absolutely nothing stopping your child looking at the ceiling and not looking at a single word. But while it's highlighting every word, and I don't know whether you notice that actually, it highlights
Return of the Jedi. You can also read along with the story.
Hard to see, but I hope you get that. It actually highlights every word, and that's called immersion reading. And if it's doing that, you're more likely that a child is going to look and follow the words as it's professionally narrated. So that's one option I wanted to show you. And the next one was, I have become a big fan of the Kindle Fire. Now, I don't believe it can do everything that an iPad can do, but it is a fraction of the price. And I've seen particularly boys really start enjoying reading more with immersion reading. And this is very hard for me to do, but I'm going to show you a video with my voice. I'm going to listen to my voice.
Now I'm going to show you a Kindle book where I've bought the audio version. And we can see as we just look at the books that some of them have the little headphones on the right hand side. And I'm going to, whereas others don't. So I'm going to tap in to David Walliams' Gangster Granny. And here I see it displays it the way I've asked it to display it. And I set this up when I did the demo on the Kindle features as opposed to the immersive reader. But they've all been set up. So I want a black background, I want it in dyslexia font, I want word-wise. That's the spacing I particularly want. And by clicking at the top, I have got these options available to me. So the 2 A's are where I set all these settings, and then the 3 dots at the end are where I have the additional helpful functionality. And I want to show you as I go through this Kindle book that wherever that there are images within the book, the child will also get the images in the ebook. And I particularly like this one because it does actually talk you through and reads all the labelling of what the granny looks like and is wearing. And as you see, I've got word-wise switched on, and just to keep the it's not so busy, I will put that to minimal help with Wordwise. And I then want to go and have a look at how we switch on immersive reading. I just press the play button there.
On way to Granny's house. Clunk went the door behind him, and the engine revved up again. Before he could ring the bell, Granny opened the door. A huge gust of cabbage blasted in Ben's face. It was like a great big slap of smell. She was very much a textbook Granny.
So I think I've shown you there how effective immersion reading can be.
Right, I think that's enough of my voice. So I've just shown you what you can get on a Kindle Fire. Apparently, it also works on Android tablets. I personally don't have an Android tablet, so I can't check that. I do have an iPad, and immersion reading doesn't work on an iPad because Apple and Amazon are competitors. And so they want you to buy a Kindle Fire. But how it works for me is I hear the professional narration and I see the book, and it turns the page at the right time, but it doesn't highlight every word. So it does work, there's no problem with it, but it doesn't highlight every word. And I've shown you some other functionality there. This whole video shows a lot more than immersive reading. It shows all the Kindle friendly functionality, changing the background color, changing the font, finding out what words mean. There's some really nice functionality in there for children. And if you wait till the Prime Day, I think they have one in November and they have one in July, so there's probably one coming up. You get Kindles at half price. So I bought my Kindle Fire 2 years ago on a Prime Day, and I think it cost me £20. It might have cost me £40, but I think they're normally £40. I got the cheapest one, so I think I got it for £20. But I think that's a really, really good buy. So we'll go back to our taster menu. We've looked at Kindle Fire, we've looked at OneDrive, so I think that's everything I was going to show you on encouraging reluctant readers. There's also a video there that just gives you an overview of how technology can help encourage reluctant readers. But I hope you found something there. Oh, the difference is when you do something like immersion reading from Kindle, you do have to pay for it, but you have to buy the Kindle book and you have to buy the audio book. But when you do, it does reduce the price. And for very young children, there aren't as many options. But for older children and adults, you can get immersion reading for almost any book. It's very good. There was a time when there weren't many books, but now almost every book it works for. So that's everything I was going to show you for that. Now we're going to talk about reading to learn. And I spoke to you earlier, we looked at this part of the graph, the fact that school, when you're beginning school, it's all about learning to read, and then it's all about reading to learn. And because of that, the more the education system relies on students reading in order to learn, the bigger the attainment gap tends to be. Because, we dyslexics, we find it hard to read, and perhaps we have to read the same page 3-4 times before we get the meaning, and so it just takes longer, and we tend to give up. So that's why you get this attainment gap. And this, for my son, just to do 6 GCSEs, this was the reading. That was all the reading he required for English literature, which you kind of would expect to have to do a lot of reading for. But for science, I never expected him to be good at English literature, but he's actually a natural scientist. And even though he has a natural capacity for physics and chemistry, not so much biology, each of these books was 400 pages long, and each page had lots of new vocabulary and complex processes. So that was really, really challenging for a dyslexic. Geography had a fair bit of reading, and history had an awful lot of reading. My son really enjoyed history, but the reading was absolutely overwhelming for him. And so the question I always ask is, why should a child be penalised across the whole curriculum because they struggle to read? A physics exam needs to test physics, and a chemistry exam needs to test chemistry. Everything isn't a reading exam. And the great news is that technology can really, really help. There's something called computer readers that you can use in exams. I'm not going to talk about those today, but they're classed as independent learning. And the number of schools that utilize them is pitifully low, but that can make a huge difference to the results that our students get. My son has just, well, he didn't do his A levels, but he was predicted A star, A star, A star. So hopefully that'll be what he gets. Who knows? I really don't know what he's going to get. But if he didn't have the access arrangements in place that he does, he would not be getting those results at all. So I've got them in place for him, but that's the sort of thing we as parents need to know about. But when it came to reading, we use something called text-to-speech. And text-to-speech, for me, is the second most important bit of technology that helps children reach their potential. And the great news is it's freely available all over the place. And I'm going to show you some slides on this, but in all honesty, the best way of doing showing you what text-to-speech is if I demonstrate it to you. And how I normally demonstrate this is a chemistry revision booklet, and my son brought it home when he was in year 6, and funnily enough he came home and he was really excited. In fact, Amanda Kennedy's here on this tour. Her son was at school with my son, and she would have got this as well. Do you remember this, Amanda? But my son came home and he was excited about this chemistry exam, and he wanted to revise, and that was quite unusual. So in year 6, the only way my son could revise was if I read to him. Now, I personally know nothing about chemistry. I haven't got a GCSE in chemistry. I'm rubbish. The only thing I brought to the table was I read it for him. And that's really sad, because it meant I had to not take my kids anywhere else. I had to just do, sorry, something's happened on my machine. Let me just fix it. Instead of cooking dinner, instead of taking my other kids anywhere, I had to read this to my son, but he wanted to revise, so I didn't want to stop him. But as I'm looking and I'm reading to him, feeling like there's so many other things I need to do right now, I realized that this is a Word document. So I emailed Mrs. Callahan, the science teacher, and I said, oh, please, could you email me this book rather than him bring it home as a hard copy? And the next day she emailed it to me, and I'm now going to show you the Word document that she sent me. And this is the chemistry revision booklet. Can you see that? No, I don't think you can. Let me try that again. In fact, so this is the chemistry revision booklet that he brought home. And once I had it in Word, as opposed to the hard copy, I was able to press this button here. Now, I hope you can see that, but it's called the read aloud. So it says read text out loud and highlight each word as it reads. So I'm going to press that button, and hopefully it's going to work beautifully with Zoom. Sometimes these things don't work very well with Zoom. Come on, you can do it. Let's do this.
The periodic table. As you know, there is a copy.
Right. So what you'll see here is you have this little menu come up that's got play, jump to the next, go back, and you can change the settings. You can change the speed, and you can change the voice. So I'm now going to say George and carry on.
Of the periodic table in your prep diary. All of the known elements are listed in the periodic table. Each element contains only one type of atom, for example, hydrogen contains.
So once I had this, my son could be an independent learner. He didn't need me to sit next to him to learn chemistry. Now, truthfully, He preferred it if I sat next to him, because he liked, he just liked me reading it. He didn't like the electronic voice. But I said to him, look, I'm not coming to university with you, so you're going to have to get used to this. And I was able to look after my other children and not always be reading to him. So this made a huge, huge difference in my house. And I also, this is using Microsoft 365. But if you don't have Microsoft 365, they actually have an online version, which is totally free. And here it is on the online version. So here, oh, you probably won't be able to see this because screen share is not going to work. Let me do a new share. I don't know if this is going to work actually. Let me try a new share. There, I think that will do it. Yes. So now I am not in Word, I'm online. I'm in Microsoft Edge, but because I have OneDrive, this is completely free, and I can do exactly the same here. But how I do it, I go into the view and then say immersive reader. And not only will it read it to me, there's an awful lot of other stuff in here as well. So I'll explain what it is. I've chosen what background colors I want. So I've said I want it to be black, but I could have said blue. I could have said the text size. I could have changed the spacing. I can change the font. And also, I can say, show me nouns, verbs, adjective verbs, and actually show labels that actually say what they are if they want, or just color code them. And I can even have a picture dictionary. So here I've got it switched on, and I'm going to say atom. So it will show me a picture dictionary of an atom. And I can translate it into a different language. So let me find out what's Bulgarian for the word atom. There it is. There's Bulgarian. So I think that's amazing. It's completely free. It can be read aloud. There's the aloud.
Atom, namely hydrogen and oxygen.
So from a hard copy that was sent home that my son couldn't read, I, for absolutely no money at all, can change the background color, the font, have a picture dictionary. There's just so much I can do, and it's completely free. And even if you don't have Word on your machine, you can get it online. So that's everything I was going to show you there. Let me go back to my PowerPoint to remind me what is coming next. And we should be back to my PowerPoint now. And that's the chemistry revision demo completed. But these are all the different areas where you get text to speech completely free. So any Microsoft machine, any Apple Mac machine, any Chromebook, any iPad, any Android machine, you can do it when you're on the internet, and you can even do it in textbooks. Now there's a particular solution called RNIB Bookshare, which I don't have time to show you tonight. And perhaps I'll just do a webinar on RNIB Bookshare. It is brilliant. It is using text to speech to read electronic textbooks. So if you think of all those textbooks that needed to be read in order to pass exams, you can get them all electronically, and they can have them read to you, which really does make a difference for children. And there are not free options, and these are some of them. You can have a photo scanner, Claro Scan Pen. This is a very, very cheap, brilliant little app that you can put on your phone that allows you to take a photograph of a worksheet, and you can have it read to you. So if you have a hard copy in the classroom that you can't read, then that, in fact, I think it's free on Android, and it's a very small charge on an iPad. And there's a video, I won't have time to show it now, but you can see that yourself. There's also reading pens. These are portable scanners. and exam pens. Again, I don't have time to talk about those this evening, but I'm very happy to talk about them. I personally prefer text-to-speech, the free version, than using a scanner. They're a lot more fiddly, but if you can't use a computer reader, then they are a good fallback position. But they do come at a price, but for some students, it's, you know, money very well spent. So that's the text-to-speach that you can buy. And I'm trying to change, there we go. So this is my taster menu that I'm just going to check. I've shown you Word Online. I've shown you some accessibility features in 365. I haven't shown you how you can have the internet read to you, but I could do that relatively easy. I'm going to go into Microsoft Edge here, and I'm going to open one of my free eBooks. I think I've got one open on a page. Yeah, this one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you that you have this in Microsoft Edge. You just say play.
Multisensory reading manual for teachers and parents. Toe by Toe supports any child or adult who has difficulty in decoding, i.e.
So that's my PDF that you can download free. I just happen to have opened it in Microsoft Edge, and when you do, there's the option just to play. And again, I can change the voice, I can change the speed. So for some children, they might want it very, very slow. For me personally, when I'm doing it, I like it really fast. I like to listen at the same rate that I would read, but somehow listening to it as I read keeps me engaged, and it means I haven't got to reread and reread to get the meaning. It really, really helps me a lot. So that's what I was going to show you there. But as I've said, all of these have got videos behind, so when you get the slides, you can click on that and have a look at Claro ScanPen. And probably even more impressive is Office Lens, an immersive reader. I really do recommend. I'm just going to look at the time. No, I haven't got time to show you tonight, but that is really brilliant functionality, and it is free, and it is life-changing for dyslexics, because it allows them to use their phone or an iPad to take a photograph of anything and have it read to them, but also then they can go in and put in answers into the document. So it can convert a page in a book into a Word document that they can go in and amend, and it's free. So that is absolutely amazing. I think that's everything I was going to show you there. So now
we're going to have a very quick look at technology to aid understanding.
So on my webpage, I have something that's called Top 10 Tips to Improve Grades for Students. I'm not going to talk about this for very long, but let me explain. Dyslexics struggle with reading, writing, and remembering. Sometimes organization, sometimes other things, but it's easy for teachers to think at the end of a lesson, and it's easy for students to think, oh, I didn't understand anything the teacher just said to me. But it's not because they're not capable of understanding what was taught in the lesson. It's because the way we're taught, we expect our children to take notes, maybe to copy information from the board. So as a teacher is explaining a new concept, the child is thinking, I don't know how to spell that. I can't keep up with that. And so instead of engaging with the lesson and learning what's being taught, they're fearful because they're trying to write down and think, well, if I don't get it down, then I won't have anything to read afterward to help me with my homework or anything to revise for the end of term exam. And I think it's really important to find other sources that teach our children. And I think videos are absolutely brilliant, because videos, you can stop, you can rewind, you can do so many different things. And to be honest, the people that make the videos tend to be better teachers. They make them because they're passionate and enthusiastic, and they really get the kids enthused about a subject. So I wrote this ebook But first of all, top 10 tips to improve grades for students. I would recommend having a look at that. It will really help older children. Just things like using dyslexia-friendly fonts. The number of students I work with that it really helps them read, and they wouldn't think of reading a Kindle book for pleasure without using a dyslexia-friendly font, but they read a chemistry book that they struggle with and they don't think to make it dyslexia-friendly. And it's so easy just to change the font or change the background color. So there's lots of little tips that you can do, like having the web page read aloud to you or having the PDF read aloud. But in this free ebook, I spell out all these great free, no, they're not all free. The ebook is free. Some of the resources on it are free, but an awful lot you do have to pay a bit for, but they're not terribly expensive. And I've also created this video which explains some of the advantages and dangers of learning from videos. And if you are going to go that way with your children, I really would recommend watching that video, because there are some common pitfalls that students often make when they learn from videos, which when you watch the video, it's so obvious, but I still see a lot of students making exactly the same mistakes. So I do recommend watching that video. So where are we? Improve understanding. 3 links there. They both, well, all 3, well, the first 2 take quite a long time to watch, so I'm not going to show them to you. But I think My GCSE Science, if you're in the UK, if you have a child in year 9 to year 11, I cannot recommend it more highly. I wish every school would buy it, because it is really really cheap if a school buys it, but if a family buys it, if your child's doing triple science, it's $49.99 for the year, and it is brilliant. And it's not designed for dyslexics, because what helps dyslexics is just good teaching. So I really recommend My GCSE Science. Shakespeare in Bits is just a way of making Shakespeare really accessible, and I think that costs about £11. And then Crash Course I am going to show you, because I've got a very quick video.
On Crash Course, we make videos used by teachers, students, and anyone who values learning and wants to understand the world better. Or, in the case of Crash Course Astronomy, the universe. We cover topics all across the sciences and humanities like physics, sociology, statistics, history, film studies, business, and so much more. Our videos are rigorously researched with writers and consultants, making sure our content is accurate and useful both to people who just want to learn and those following a curriculum. Our animation team, Thought Cafe, brings the things we teach to life with absolutely delightful animations that help solidify the information. Our mission is to provide high-quality educational content to everyone for free, and our community here on Patreon helps make that possible. When you become a member...
I absolutely adore Crash Course. It's a bit like BBC Bite Size, but everybody watches BBC Bite Size. So if you're studying for your GCSEs, any insight you get from BBC Bite Size, chances are everyone else is going to get. This being American, it doesn't follow our syllabuses, but they are so zany and witty, and everything's about 6 to 12 minutes long. And they just cover fantastic topics, and I just love learning from them. And when I show them to my dyslexic students, they really, really love them. So, and I picked that one to show you because it was a short video, whereas the others are a bit more lengthy. So that is all I was going to show you with improving understanding. Now we're going to talk about improving the quality of a written work. And I will just pose a question, which is, what must every student do to be assessed? So we've talked about, in order to learn, our education system relies on students reading. And we know that dyslexics struggle with reading, so they're at a disadvantage in every subject. Now, when it comes to being assessed, be it your homework, an assignment, coursework, or an exam, we need our children to produce written work. And if they produce something that looks, you know, there's no punctuation, the spelling's rubbish, it's untidy, it's disorganized, then they're going to get a really poor mark. And we talked about the performance gap earlier. I think, you know, in primary school, we talked about, oh, I struggle to read and I look at my friends and they can read easier than me. I mustn't be very clever. When it comes to handing in homework, dyslexics often spend a disproportionate amount of time producing their homework, and then they get rubbish marks, and it is soul destroying. And I saw my eldest child just give up. She just thought, well, I can work really hard and get rubbish marks, or I can have a really nice time at school and play with my friends and chat away and get rubbish marks. So I'm going to go for the easy option and get rubbish marks rather than work hard. And, you know, she just assumed, well, I'm not very bright. I'm never going to achieve very much, but I'll have a nice time. And I think this happens a lot. People compare themselves to their peers. They assume they're not very academic. They assume that they're not very bright, when in actual fact, they're not very good at reading, or they're not very good at writing. But that's not the same as not being bright. And I spend my life telling my students that your intelligence is not measured by your literacy. And I talk a lot to students about, you could write something perfectly. You could have beautiful, legible handwriting. You could have perfect spelling. You could write really quickly. But outside of school, in the real world, nobody cares about those things. They care about the content. Did you solve a problem? Were you creative? Were you innovative? Can you analyze what's in front of you? That's what the whole world cares about. And as you get further on in education, that's what they measure. But unfortunately, at the beginning years, it's all about, you know, how good's your spelling? How quickly can you read and write? You know, because you've got a 3-hour exam and you've got to read all the questions and write your answers as quickly as possible. And our kids are at a disadvantage, but that's fine. The education system is set up to help the majority, not the minority. I get that. But what I'm not prepared to put up with is children wrongly believing that they're thick when they're not. My son was on the remedial table at school for everything bar maths. And for maths, he was in the second to top table. When in actual fact, he's a maths genius and he's going to go on and do pure maths at university. He really is very good at maths. He scraped a 4 in his English language. Who cares? He'll never have to do it again. But he's really, really good, but he was judged by his ability to read, and he was on second to top table for maths. They could not see that he was a top table candidate because he wasn't very good at reading. And there are children like that in every classroom that are very bright but aren't very good at reading. They're not very good at writing, and so that it's assumed that they're not very, very bright. And so where I see my role is to find technology that enables dyslexics to actually go on and achieve what they're capable of, rather than being held back by their literacy. And that's what I did with my own children, and that's what I do with the children that I work with. And when it comes to creating written work, the options are you write it by hand, you touch type it, and there are touch typing packages designed for dyslexics like Clicker, which a lot of people think is brilliant and is free, by the way, while the pandemic is on. And I told you that the BDA, Miles Pilling, did a webinar last week. He shows Clicker in detail, which is one of the reasons why I'm not showing Clicker now. But if you want to know more, go and have a look at that and get it while it's free. And I think it stops being free at the end of August or sometime in August. You can use mind mapping, which hopefully a good mind map package will have a back end in Word, so you're not having to recreate it, but it will create a Word document for you, or you can dictate. Now, my son, who's severely dyslexic, he can dictate because he has access arrangements that allow him to have a scribe and exams. But that's a really hard access arrangement to get. And so for any child, it's much easier to dictate than it is to learn to touch type. Learning to touch type's a pain. But if you cannot dictate in exams, you've got to be really careful, because you do not want to have your student or your child dependent on dictating if they cannot use it in exams. Whereas touch typing is a relatively easy access arrangement to get. So I think it's really, really helpful thing to do. And one of the reasons I touch typing, I didn't go into thinking I want to teach people to touch type, but I want to help dyslexics achieve what they're capable of. And in order to do that, they need to learn to touch type. And so I teach touch typing, and I've honed how I do it over the years. But, you know, educational psychologists always recommend that children learn to touch type. And there are many, many really good free typing solutions. And yet the vast majority of the students that come to me asking for help to do well in their GCSEs and their A levels, they do not type well. And so I love teaching children how to touch type. And I do believe it's really worth doing before they enter secondary school, because then it's easier to get the access arrangement of being a touch typist in formal exams. And my son did not want to learn to touch type. He really, really wasn't interested at all. And so how I persuaded him is I took a piece of work that he did. Now, this was back in 2013, and this was a piece of descriptive writing that he did. And he worked really hard on it. He was in a dyslexia-friendly school, so it's not full of red squiggles, but he did make quite a few mistakes. And so what I did to try and persuade him to learn to touch type was I took this piece of work, and for every character that he'd written, I typed exactly the same character. So I'd show him the extra help he would get if he typed his work. And I'm going to show that to you now. So this is the descriptive writing he did. And in fact, I'm going to struggle to show it to you the way my screen is. That will do it. So this is his descriptive writing. Now, we're all very familiar with the red squiggly line as spell check. Now, for my son, he hated it because he couldn't tell if he did this and they gave him 3 or 4 different options. He didn't know which was the right one. He really didn't know. But now you can actually have it read aloud.
Everyone, similar to everybody, each, all.
So that helped him a lot, because there aren't different options there, but if there were different options, let's see if there are different options here. Yes, shade, side, or sage. He wouldn't have known which one was correct, but now he can
shade, similar to, shadow, blind, hue.
So a lot of people don't realize that that's been added. Also, you get help with your grammar. But the thing that I like most, and I could actually sit here and tell you lots of different ways that they get help if they type their work. But the thing that I love the most is what I have already shown you, is the reading.
The person walking through the door is called Luke, age 11, and must be the tallest boy in the class. He's got a mop of red silly hair and freckles, everyone like Luke because he always got a joke to tell that make us laugh. Mr.
See, I cannot see the mistakes I make. My son can't. Many people cannot see their own mistakes, but you can hear them. And if you train your child to always listen to their work before they complete it, and then they go in and correct their work, then they will get higher marks. And teachers won't think, oh, they just chucked anything together and they're not trying hard. They put in a better work because they've bothered to listen to it. And also, dyslexics often have poor vocabularies, and what they're able to do is, say for example, the word angry. If you've said the word angry 7 times already in a particular piece of homework, you can use synonyms, and you can see, oh, I could have said mad, indignant, annoyed, irate, or irritated. And if that's not enough, then you can go into thesaurus and get an awful lot more information. And also, if you find out, oh, grot, I made a mistake. I was supposed to talk about Luke after Mr. Fraser, not before Mr. Fraser, you can just change things. And that means you're not scrubbing out and moving things around. And that's great in exams because you can plan your essay. You can brainstorm as you're typing and move things around and change the order that you do things in, which I think is superbly important and helpful when it comes to exams. Plus, it does not hurt your hand. Many dyslexics have a poor pencil grip or hypermobility, so it doesn't hurt their hand. It's far more legible. An examiner can't give marks if they can't read the work, and most students can type at least twice as quickly as they can write. So every last single exam that our children do is a test of speed as well as knowledge. Now, the average student that comes to me can write about 15 words per minute, but they can type about 35 words per minute. So in a finite exam, in a finite time period, you can write an awful lot more, therefore you can get an awful lot of marks. So I do believe that if you have a computer reader in exams and you type in exams, it is leveling the playing field, because obviously it takes our children a lot longer to read and they find writing a lot more difficult. So I think that's everything I was going to show you when it came to written work. For once, I think I'm going to finish on time. So let me come down. I did say I didn't think there'd be time for questions, which I apologize for, but I will look through all your questions. So here I'm just showing that once I put the information into Word, he got spelling and grammar, synonyms, thesaurus. It was easier to correct and reorganize, and he did proofreading, and he could hear his mistakes, which makes a big difference. So I think we're on the closing. There's just some more information that will be in the slides that you can read to remind you about functionality. I do actually have 2 typing courses running at the beginning of the summer holidays. I'm very proud of my typing courses because they're not just teaching children to type, they're also teaching them all about the technology they need to know in order to get better grades. And I think the hardest thing about learning to touch type is the motivation. And if they understand this is going to help me, then they have the intrinsic motivation rather than it just being your mum nagging you, oh, you should learn to type, you should learn to type. So I do get very, very, very good results. But also I've set it up as a parent who is very cost conscious. Too many students came to me who have been on an intensive course one May half term and another intensive course the next February and an intensive course in the summer, and they could hardly type because they were doing these intensive courses and then they're going long times without typing, then another intensive course, and each course is expensive. So what I do is I run an intensive course before a long holiday, and then I keep the children practicing with me. Once a week, we just have a meeting where I keep them going and we type for the whole holiday, the 5-6 weeks. And then by the end of that holiday, they are proficient typists. They have the muscle memory, they have the skill for life, and they are then able to type their homework so they don't forget the skill. And they also know all the tricks that will help them get higher grades. So they do actually type their homework because there's a benefit of doing so. And then they've got the skill for the rest of their lives. I'm full on next week in the afternoon, but I have a couple of spaces in the morning, and I have loads of spaces on the 27th morning and afternoon. So if you do want, I only really run them just before the summer holidays. Sometimes I run them just before Easter holidays, but that's for older children, because older children can learn in 2 weeks, no problem, but younger children need longer. And truthfully, the dexterity improves as children get older, but they are less, they're less inclined to do it. They want to fit in and be like their friends. So the sooner they learn and they get used to doing it, the better. So I just want to end up, I'm almost finished, but I want to just do one more poll, if I may. And I want to ask you, if I can find my poll. I've forgotten how to do it. How do I get my next poll? I had a question. I might just ask you to do it in the comments. It'd be really helpful for me to know which of the 5 sections was the most useful. So I'm going to stop sharing that. I know what I needed to do. Which section have you found the most helpful this evening? So if I run one of these again, I'll know where to devote my time. So those of you that have stayed till the very end, if you could help me, that would be really good. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to go on and finish off my slides. And what I'm going to say here is, I hope it's apparent to you that technology enables students to exceed expectations, not only improving exam results, but self-esteem, which I think is super important. And it's really good to start early. This is just something I put together myself, but it's a huge generalization. But the pressure of work increases, peer pressure increases, cooperation and plasticity goes down. So the sooner children start using technology, the better. It really is. So I think everybody has said what they think were the best. So I'll just share the results with you. Share results. So you've all got an idea of what other people found useful. And I am just about to finish. I just like to finish off by saying, you know, how can I help you going forward? You will get my monthly newsletters now, unless you unsubscribe. I try to share helpful things there. I have a Facebook group, and I really would recommend that. It's a really efficient way of sharing information, and there are lots of other very good groups. I've already shown you my website where I have free resources. I have a YouTube channel where you get free resources, and it is really worth subscribing because I do put new things out all the time. I have a remote consultancy service. My charge is very similar to a dyslexia tutor, but the difference is you would see a dyslexia tutor every week for, you know, many, many weeks. Mine is all about setting you up so that you don't need me. So we might only need 2 sessions, and then you won't need me again until your child's at a different stage of learning. It's all about helping parents and children work more effectively together. And I actually am finding, I used to just go to people's houses, but I'm finding the remote ones really good. And they're all recorded, which means you can go back and watch at your leisure. And so you don't have to take lots of notes, which is really, really helpful. And how could you help me? I would be really grateful if, when you see my channel, if you subscribe, like my videos, share any of my resources with anyone else that could benefit, because I am just trying to get the word out there. And it really helps me be found if you write me a Google review. I would be very, very grateful if you found things useful. If you could put that in a Google review, that would be wonderful. I'm sorry I've given you so much information, but I do hope all the handouts that I'm going to send you will help. And as I suggested, I don't think there's any time for questions, but I will promise to read your questions and incorporate as many of them as I can in the next webinar on the 21st of July. So I will stay here. I will have a look at your questions. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to stay for another 10 minutes. If you want to ask some questions, I'm happy for you to switch on your microphones. But my daughter has cooked a duck ragu, and I have a glass of red wine that I'm quite looking forward to going to. So 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, I'm here if you have any questions. Yeah. Hi, Kate. Ask away. I'm getting my wine.
That was really useful. I'm just wondering about getting on the touch typing course. Do I go on your website to find out?
Yes, you can book online.
Okay.
As I say, at what age is your child?
2, 11 and 14.
And they could come next week on the 13th if you want to. We've got 2 spaces in the morning, and that would work, 11 and 13. But on the 27th, there's quite a bit of space.
Okay.
Okay.
Caroline, I have a 9-year-old grandson. In fact, he's not quite 9. He's 9 at the end of July.
Uh-huh.
Is it too young to go for the touch typing? He's dyspraxic and probably ADHD as well.
Yeah, probably. What year is he in?
He's the end of year 4.
Yeah, I'd leave it a bit. I think especially with boys as well, they've got to want to learn to touch type. So if he's dyspraxic and his hand hurts and he sees benefit in typing, it works. But if they've got to buy into it, really. And it's about maturity more than dexterity at times. But yeah, dyspraxic as well, I'd probably leave it 10, 11.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I possibly ask a question? I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and I've just had so many light bulbs going off, so I just suddenly feel
encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was brilliant. I also I have a 9-year-old and wanted to find out about the typing. She's already done a week-long typing course, and she is using typing.
Be fine. So, she would be perfect.
Okay.
It's funny, boys, girls. I've had girls, 7-year-old girls, do really, really well. They're just so different, and that doesn't mean all girls and all boys. But when I hear dyspraxic and ADD, I think, yeah, they probably isn't a winning formula. But 9 is normally fine.
Okay, and I have one other quick question, and that is, I've been trying to find a program where she can. So she has problems holding her pencil, and her handwriting is really illegible. And I've been trying to find a program where she can speak and then it types it.
Oh, there's so many. What sort of device have you got?
Apple.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I haven't created the videos yet. They're on my to-do list, and they will be so easy to create. When the school term is over and I'm not doing so much consulting and teaching, I'll do some dictation. But if you were to go on YouTube and just look at a dictation on a Mac, it is so easy and it is so good, and it's free.
Oh, it's already on there. Okay, so I've been looking at Dragon programs and other things, and
Dragon is good. I pay for Dragon, but I paid for Dragon for my son. I paid for Dragon on a Mac for my son, and the only time he used it was when the spell check on Word couldn't work out what he was trying to say. He'd switch on Dragon and say elephant, and it would just write one word, and then he'd switch it off. And so it was really expensive. So I really believe in try the free stuff. Okay. And if she gets on well with the free stuff, maybe get Dragon. But to be honest, the free stuff has got so good that get a decent microphone like this. And I don't mean expensive, but something like this from Logitech or Plantronics. This is Logitech, but Plantronics is also good. It's about £20-30. And the quality of the microphone makes quite a difference. It's a very different skill. You know, you have to say the punctuation. You've got to be careful that they don't come too dependent on it, but it's fantastic for getting over that blank piece of paper. And I tell you, one of the best things I do is change your font such that when they dictate, it looks like cursive handwriting. And it's very, very light grey. And then after they have dictated, they can actually go over it. And it looks like their handwritten work.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Caroline, I have one question. I have a will be 8 in August, and we've been learning to touch type since Christmas, and it's slow because you don't do it because it's school time and things. But anyway, we're trying. But he's trying really hard, and he does work hard, and he does focus and everything. But he's fairly slow at processing, so it just goes quite slowly. Do you think best not to do it at the moment and just wait a bit till he's a little bit older?
If you're doing it already and he's bought in, that actually sounds okay.
Okay. I looked at your courses a couple of times and I thought, oh, he just won't keep up, you know, because he just takes a little bit of time for it to process. So quite often in classes, and he'll be behind. He's already.
But what? I don't know why you wouldn't keep up with, because everyone kind of goes at their own rate.
Oh, great. Well, that's good. That's really good. Because every sort of online thing always puts me off because of that.
Because I gave it, I don't know whether you get my newsletter, but I had a girl on my last and I don't know, her mum might be on this, but she was so slow on the course on the day. I was really worried about her. We did them all to do a baseline test, and we got to the end and she was nowhere near doing the baseline test, and I could see she was anxious. And I just spoke to her after. I said, look, it doesn't matter, in your own time, you do it, it's fine, don't worry about it. I can see your finger positioning is good, speed doesn't matter. And in that 1 week in between my first course, because this was a Saturday, and the next one, she did the best of everybody on the course.
Oh, that's great.
Brilliantly. So being slow processing really doesn't.
No, and actually, interestingly, because we've been doing Nessie Fingers, and he's got about 10 certificates on the wall of accuracy. He's not very fast, but he's accurate.
And I think what it does is it gives you a focus, because you're going to see other people, and what we do is we measure progress. So as long as they're making progress, they get rewards, they get, you know, you're doing really well.
Brilliant.
I look for ways to sort of encourage them every week, well, every day, but then what happens through the holiday, it's once a week we get together and I tell them how much they've progressed.
Brilliant. Well, maybe I'll try and sign up for the one at the end of July. I've also got 10-year-olds, so could sign them both up.
I do give a discount for siblings.
Yes, I saw. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for the webinar. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. I'm glad. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hi, Caroline. Can I slide in a wee question, please?
Of course.
Hi, thank you. Picked up so many useful tips, and you've a really lovely style, very, very easy to listen to. So that's made a midweek session a lot easier.
Where are
you? Northern Ireland, Lisburn in Northern Ireland.
Right, I'm a Scouser.
Right.
More Irish than English at times.
Indeed. I have a 11-year-old with dyslexic and DCD, and she's transitioning from primary school to secondary school. Query is around standardised testing. We removed her from standardised testing in primary school because we thought it didn't serve a purpose in that it wasn't reflecting her ability. They weren't putting accommodations in. And we think it maybe stung us a little bit in the tail, because as she's left primary school, she's very definitely underachieving. But the school would tell us, because we wouldn't let her be assessed, then with no baseline of where she was performing at. So just wondering your views with regards to standardised testing going forward into secondary school. Is it a good thing to let them do, or is it not? For her, it knocked her confidence, and we had many tears, so that's why we withdrew her from it, really. But just wondering what the best way forward is. Have you any advice?
I think parents make the best decision they can with the kids they have. How I did SATs, I did them a little bit different, in as much as I said to my kids, I could not care less. It is it's assessing how well your teachers have done, and if you do badly, it reflects on them, not you. So I don't worry about it for 2 seconds. So my kids did them, and I don't think they did great. I don't think they did brilliant, terribly, but that was what I did. But I know some schools that want kids not to take them because they don't want it to take their average down, which I think, that annoys me. I just think you can only do your best. And from what I gather, every secondary school does their own tests when you get there as well, because they don't trust that. Now, if there are teachers here, they might put me right there, but I've definitely been told that.
Yeah, no, so it wouldn't be SATs as such that we have here. It would be testing done at the end of every academic year, progress through maths and progress through English, PTM, PTE, but they still continue to do that in secondary school, and they use those to level them and to stream them into different classes as well. It just doesn't reflect her ability very well at all.
Well, I think a lot of it is getting to use technology, because then you're not having to worry about, I don't think you can have a computer reader for SATs. I don't know, things are changing all the time, but you can GCSEs, and if you're going to use it for GCSEs, then you need to start having them for end of term exams. And it's definitely, technology means that they can get over the barriers with literacy, and try and get the schools on board. And there's education required. We have to go educate schools as to why it's what they need to do, how to do it at the lowest cost, because schools have no money. That's the odd thing. I think I sent my son to a dyslexia specialist school, and there were lots of kids there with lots of different needs, but that was quite a good thing for his self-esteem. But it was a hard decision to make, and I don't think everyone should do it. I didn't with my girls. But self-esteem is the most important thing, and I have a couple of web pages on self-esteem, and I'll definitely be talking about self-esteem on the 21st.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, no, it'll be good to link into that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Enjoy your wine and your duck.
Well, I'm actually, the thing is, this is what I like doing. I'm good to just have wine here and chat to parents about dyslexic kids.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure. See you. Bye-bye. Is that it? Everyone done? Stop share.
Could I have a quick question?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I don't know if you want my video. Is that
it's easy if I can see someone, yeah.
I've got a son who's actually 12 now, so he's just finished year 7. I'm really interested in your touch typing course, but is there a different age group for, were you saying the older ones go in the afternoons? Or?
Yeah, I tend to do young, but that's the reason I do younger in the morning is they tend to be okay at getting up, whereas the afternoon, if I had to get a 15-year-old to start a lesson at 9:30, it would be awful. I think on the whole, the older kids tend to get it quicker, and you don't want to be a lot slower than everybody else. It's just discouraging. So that's why I split them by age. But like next week, I've got a 15-year-old that is better to do it in the morning, and I've got young kids that've got for family commitments of doing it in the afternoon. So I say to parents, that's how I've split it for these reasons, but they can do what they want, really.
Okay.
On my Saturday course, I have all ages, and I just make sure when I'm talking to my 9-year-old, I say, look, I hope you're feeling good. You're doing really well. The fact that you're not doing as well as a 15-year-old, it doesn't matter. And up until now, I haven't had a problem. But I make sure that I reassure children. Like, as you get older, it gets easier. And then I've got a 15-year-old who's really struggling. And he's probably doing worse than some of the 11-year-olds. And then I feel sorry for him. But I have conversations with him saying, okay, I wonder what it is. Maybe we'll try this. And I say to them all at the very beginning, look, not everyone's a great singer.
Some of you will find this easy and some of you will find it hard. And it's got nothing to do with intelligence. It's just for some it comes easy and for some it doesn't.
I think my son, he reads okay. It's just it's the writing. It's so it's just so slow. So hearing that you can type in formal exams, is that quite common?
Yeah.
That they can take a laptop into form, like when he gets to
take their own
GCSEs.
laptop. The school has to provide the laptop because they have to take out spell check and anything that they can't get onto the internet. They can't look anything up. So, yes. And what I've found is private schools have more laptops. So you're more likely to be able to type in a private school than a state school, which is really bad. And so I feel like if state schools understood how much better their results would be and let parents do some sort of fundraising to buy them, it doesn't cost a lot to buy a pile or to lease a pile of Chromebooks.
No,
but that's
so it's not just a case of asking and they will give them a laptop for the exams.
Every school's different.
I know it's a few years off, but I do think it will really help him. But back to the typing course then, if there's no spaces in the afternoon, it's fine for the morning.
Yeah. And on the 27th I've lots of space. There isn't loads of space on the 13th.
Right, okay. And on the I've got a daughter who's got no dyslexia issues at all. But I think it would benefit her to learn to type. It's just a typing course, is it? It's not specifically for dyslexic.
It is and it isn't. I always have kids on, normally siblings that aren't dyslexic, but sometimes I promote it to dyslexics, but sometimes they tell their friends, and so I have non-dyslexics come. So they come with the expectation is I'm going to talk about dyslexia, but the things that I'm showing aren't dyslexia specific things. They're just how to use grammar check, how to use synonyms, how to listen to your work, which benefits everybody.
For anyone.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye. Thank you for the webinar.
Pleasure.
Can I ask a very quick question?
Yeah, sure.
I know you're ready to go.
Yeah, go. It's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine, honestly.
My son is an excellent touch typer already. So his speed is very good. His accuracy is very good. So I'd always thought your courses wouldn't be right for him. But do you do, or can you consider doing in the future, a course that is just teaching them about the other side, the technology side? So the grammar check.
That would just be like learning skills and revision. Do you know what he can do speed and accuracy wise?
I think he's about 45 words a minute and 97% accuracy.
Yeah. You'd be amazed the parents that say to me, my son's a really good typist, and then I get them to do a typing test and they probably couldn't do 22 words per minute.
Yeah.
And I go, well, they could do an awful lot better than that, but 45 is fab. That's what I do on average.
Basically, he's been using a laptop at school for the last 2 years. He's 11 and about to transition to senior school, has used his laptop for his entrance exams, going to private school. So he's very, very good with it, but I don't know whether, there's anything else that we can support him with.
Well, in all honesty, he'd probably be better just having an hour's consultancy or 2 hours consultancy.
Okay.
It would probably be worthwhile chatting with you to work out what his strengths and weaknesses were. And then having a session with him and you, or him and your husband, or all three of you, whereby I show you, well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And the reason I have parents involved is, and this isn't always the case, sometimes the kids get the tech, but when they are stressed with work, the tech goes out the window, they're just stressed. So the parents, they might not get the tech, but they'll be able to say, oh, hold on, calm down. Why don't you try what Caroline showed you? And that you'll sort of prompt them to use it. So if you don't know about it, you won't prompt them to use it.
Yeah, definitely. So I've just realised my video wasn't on. He is we've had lots of talks about technology. He wants to watch this. He stayed up for the first 15 minutes of it. And then I promised that we would watch the video of it later, because luckily he's very curious and because I'm dyslexic, I'm very proactive and say, you know, if there's technology out there, let's get using it. So once we've done that, and I'll probably get my husband to watch it as well, because he's also gone to bed and I'm on my own.
Wow, they go to bed early in your house.
They do, yes. I'm the night owl, they're larks.
Right.
And then actually we may well come back to you and say, right, let's do consultation, because my concern is senior school and what that's going to involve, and get him on the best foot and the best way forward, because
next week's one will really help you.
I'm booked on that as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully by the end of that we can then look and say, right, well, we've got some time, let's see what we can do. So yeah.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Next week.
Enjoy your evening and your duck.
Thank you. Thanks.
Take care.
It's
Bye.
great when kids cook for you. Doesn't happen often.
I know, he's only 11. I'm hoping we'll get there soon.
She's 20.
Okay. A little while to wait then.
See you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Hi, Caroline. Thanks for a really excellent webinar. It's the second one I've watched of yours. I've just got a very quick question about the touch typing course. My son
You're a teacher.
I'm a teacher, yes. Can you remember? You've got a really good memory, haven't you, for faces?
Yeah, for my faces, because your hair's very different. But yeah, you look, once you said it, I thought, oh yeah, I know who you are. Yeah.
Wow, God, that was about a month or two ago as well. Yeah, my he's got a reading age of 6. Does that have any bearing on whether he'd be able to do the touch typing course or not? No, it would still work, would it?
How old is he?
He's 10. He's just turned 10, yeah. He'll be okay, you think?
I think my son might still have a reading age of 6, and he's 18, so...
Okay, fantastic. Brilliant. Well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks then, hopefully.
Okay. See you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Anyone else? I think I'm safe. I'm going to switch off unless there's another question. Heidi, do you want to ask a quick one?
Hello, Caroline.
Yeah.
To speak to you face to face. My daughter, as you know, is attending the course on the 27th of July. How much input will I need to give her? How much help would I need to give her on the course? She's just turned 10.
I'd be in the house. What tends to happen is if I think someone's getting into trouble, I'd normally text them on.
Right, okay.
But I don't have to do that very often.
Right, because obviously I'm working from home and I'm working full time, and I'm just thinking, should I take some time off to be with her?
No.
You think she'll be fine?
Fine. Just get a setup. You know, make sure the keyboard works, the webcam works. Fine. No, you'd probably be able to get on with more. I'll keep her occupied.
All right, that's fantastic. Thanks very much, Caroline.
Okay, see you, Heidi.
See you. Bye-bye.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Okay, I will ask really quickly.
Okay, go.
Very quickly. I did just quickly whiz on and sign my boy up for the touch typing course. He's done a few touch typing courses before, and he has done brilliantly. I never go. It's always, he's done the touch type read and spell.
Yeah.
What you said is that awful thing where they do an intensive course and then nothing, and an intensive course and nothing. But he does have access arrangements, so he uses a Chromebook and he uses an iPad, and he's supposed to touch type everything at school, but of course they don't always do it. So I was so quick off the mark signing him up for the course on the 27th. I didn't check all of the specifications on tech.
Good internet access.
Yeah.
A laptop with 2 USB ports.
Yeah, I'm sure we've got that.
Google Chrome. So you just download Google Chrome.
Oh yeah. I'm sure he's used that.
That's it. So you've got to be able to put in a second webcam. you've got to be able to put in my keyboard, and you've got to have good internet access, and that's it. That's all of it.
Second webcam. So that could be his iPad.
No, I send it to you. It's all part of the price, because I want one webcam like this where I'm looking at them, so I'm teaching them, and then another webcam on their hands, and okay, we're practicing now. And if it's there on the top of the machine, they can't read and look at it be at their fingers. So they need two separate webcams. So I send one, and then I send you a self-addressed envelope, and then you send it back to me at the end.
Awesome. We will work it out when we get it. We'll work out the setup when we get it. Amazing.
Okay.
Such a good webinar. Thank you so much. Can't wait for the next one.
Brilliant. Oh, I'm glad. I think maybe I'll start doing these once a month.
I feel like you're social. Everyone bring wine. You'll never end question.
We'll just have wine and talk about how
virtual meetups. Great for this whole lockdown thing. Anyway, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye. Anyone else? I think going, gone.